Well, baby, you've been on my mind. I think about you all the time. Oh, I want to see your face. That don't make me wait.
Welcome to Sleeping Around the Podcast with Dr. Ann and Matthew. Man, we are back in Austin, Texas.
Yes, we are.
Back at the AC Hotel.
Yes.
Back on the couch with you.
Yes. All your favorite places to be.
I'm telling you, for our visual, our people on YouTube, you're going to have a treat today.
Yeah.
Ann is wearing a yellow.
It's not me. It's not me. It's our guest.
A yellow. We'll get there. We're wearing a yellow outfit. What shoes were we rocking today? Nice.
There we go.
Gosh dang, Dr. Ann, you always have to outdress me. Handsome Dan is here. Say hi, Handsome Dan. Hello. There you go. Handsome Dan's here. And we have a very special guest. Now, before I introduce this guest, I got to kind of tell a backstory. A couple years ago, I was advised by my daughter's therapist to get on social media. And I wasn't on social media. I really wasn't. And so they informed me to get on Instagram. And I need to post a message every morning to my daughter. I need to be the very first message that my daughter opens up and reads, because she was of the age at the time. She was 16, going on 16, and was, she was all about social media. So
Sure.
I got on Instagram and I would post these messages, just positive messages. If anybody still follows me, I still do it every morning around 4 a.m. So I've been doing this for a while. And I would try to find like-minded people that had positive messages and stuff. And so one of the follows that I really enjoyed and started begging her to be on the original podcast is our next guest. So Lacey is our next guest, and she originally was supposed to be on in November. I know, Dan, I'm not supposed to say that. Then we took a hiatus, and I've been bugging her to come on to meet Dr. Ann to be on our podcast, because this is why it's important, Lacey. Your messages I would tag them and I would send them to my daughter. And I think that your message of women empowerment, I think the way you showcase your personal relationships and your fitness goals and your clients is motivational. And part of Sleeping Around the Podcast, we always focus on sleep, but we want to inspire people. Lacey, you inspired me, and we had never met till today, correct?
Correct.
So I know we messaged and trying to get on the podcast. And so I can't wait to jump into your story and hear all about you and your journey, because I do know a little, right? But I just think our audience would love to hear this. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I always never give last names. Y'all notice that, unless you're comfortable giving full names. But I met you through your Instagram. Can I say the name of the
Absolutely,
Instagram?
yes.
Lifting with Lace, right?
Yeah.
And it's a great follow. Like I said, it's very inspirational. And so, so welcome to Sleep Around the Podcast.
Thank you.
And kind of tell us how you met this big-eared guy.
Thank you.
This
Thanks
creeping
for
guy was
tracking me down on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yep.
I know. Well, it's funny. I mean, even the guy that I'm dating, I met on Instagram. So a lot of relationships could be found on Instagram, right?
Yes.
But no, you had reached out to me, and I think it was kind of the same thing. Like, I loved what you were posting, and very inspirational, motivational. And I always want to reshare your stuff, but it's private. So I'm like, I'm just going to take a snapshot. But yeah, so my name is Lacey Washington. I have no problem saying my last name.
Okay.
And I do, my Instagram handle is Lifting with Lace. I am how old am I now? 43 years old.
Right,
That's
43,
kinda
you're
scary.
young.
Yeah, exactly.
You're young. Don't act like I'm way older than that. Now Dan's way younger than all of us.
Yes,
I know.
Yeah. We had to change his diapers before, but
Yeah.
it was, luckily
He's
it
not
wasn't
even
a mess.
30
No,
yet.
I'm just
Gosh.
kidding.
Well, so 43-year-old single mama too. My kiddos are 12 and 9, growing up way too fast. And I've been in the fitness world for quite a while. I mean, I never did anything in college, but high school, I like cheered and played tennis, that kind of thing. And I've always been like super active and healthy for the most part. Went to school at Texas State University in San Marcos, Texas here.
You bet.
Eat 'em up cats.
Uh-huh.
And got my bachelor's degree in exercise sports science with a nutrition minor. And didn't really know what I wanted to do with that. I was personal training and all that kind of stuff at the YMCA. I lived in Houston for like 5 years. my ex-husband was a college football coach, and so I kind of traveled around all of Texas, like with that kind of thing.
Sure.
But it's funny, I got my degree in that, and then I kind of like, it was the first job that showed me money right out of college. Like I had all these student loans to pay off and
Sure.
stuff. So I
Sure.
went to the insurance world completely off track
Sure.
of what I really wanted
Which
to do.
is so common for most people after
Yeah.
they graduate college, right? They go to college with the ideas of, I'm going to get this degree, and then they have no idea how they're
Yeah,
going to utilize
I was
it.
actually in the property insurance world, and so
Okay.
I actually did inspections like on people's roofs.
What?
I did, and I would show up at these houses because they had filed a claim or
Right.
whatever for hail damage,
Right.
and they were not expecting to see me on the other side of the
Right.
door. And I'm like, "Hey, I'm gonna climb your roof," and all the poor men, they'd be like, "Can I hold your ladder or something?" Like I'm like, "No, I'm good. I got it."
No.
So yeah, I did that, and I actually loved it because I got to work from home, set my own hours, like, you know, out of college, like you got a car,
Yeah.
you got a laptop. I was like, hell yeah, this is awesome.
I'm
That's
rich.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
And but yeah, so I kind of, when I moved to Houston, I did not want to be in the outside adjusting world in Houston, like going in the third ward and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I went into I was like inside
You're good.
inside insurance lines and that kind of thing. And then I got pregnant and decided to, you know, kind of put that to the side. My ex-husband was being a college football coach's wife is a job in itself.
I'm sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to maintain a career and a job or anything just
Sure.
because there's so many things you have to be at. And then, you know, we had a child, and then that was just like my whole career and everything kind of took a back seat.
Sure. Well, I think whenever if you don't mind.
Yeah, no.
By the way, this is Lacey's first podcast.
My first
I think.
podcast.
And she's doing
And you're doing
amazing.
an amazing
I'm a
job.
virgin.
Yeah.
You know, I think whenever,
Not anymore.
well, I could tell you it just, in a majority of people I've ever met, they go to college and they don't do anything that has to do with their
Yeah.
degree.
No, agreed.
And
Yeah.
so, but you hit on two things that I thought was pretty cool. When you talked about just kind of taking a leap of faith and doing a job that I guess is a masculine job or the way people treated you, but how selfless, right? So whenever you are married to somebody, and the joke is I've been married twice, I'm a professional divorcee, but there's a selfless part of you
Yeah.
that you do. I like how you said it, back burner, put it on hold, but yet your first is to take care of your children.
Right.
Yeah.
And then to be a loving, supportive spouse.
Sure.
So I found that journey pretty quick. So am I assuming that journey did happen quick? You graduated college, went straight to work, went straight to having babies, living, being the wife and all that. Was that like really quick?
Oh, yeah, for the most part.
Because you did say your age, and you're not that old, so I just assumed, and you told me your kids' ages. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I had my first child, was pregnant, like I hit 30 and I didn't have a kid yet, and I was like, holy crap, like
Dan?
my clock is like,
Yes,
what is
exactly. You become
happening?
you become Marissa Tomei from my cousin
the-
Vinny.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
you're like, my biological clock is ticking.
Yes, it was, and I made it a job. I'm like,
Yes.
we got to do this now. I can't, like, I mean, I had a lot of friends from high school that they didn't really do the college route, and they were having kids and stuff, so
Sure.
I felt kind of like behind the 8 ball.
Sure.
But yeah, so I had my first around like 30 when I was 30.
Well, that's
31.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So, so again, I kind of sacrificed what I wanted to do and my career and stuff, and I decided to become a stay-at-home mom.
Sure.
And helped my ex further his career. Which
The
was
most important
amazing.
job, and I will state this, the most important job, I hate when people say, I was a stay-at-home. That is the most important job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is.
And what do they call it back in the day? Homemakers or whatever. It's an important job, and it's a decision
And you
that
know
you
what-
sacrifice because there's no way you probably could have done both, right?
No,
Had the full-time
I'm-
career.
No, not with trying to be the coach's wife and
Sure.
all the things. But matter of fact, when I was going back into the career world and professional world after I got divorced, I Googled it, and Forbes tells stay-at-home moms to put that on their resume.
They should.
So you better believe that is on my resume, and I learned a lot from my time as a stay-at-home
So,
mom.
so let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, this podcast is about sleep, and obviously we have conversations. There's a couple different transitions there that you had, and one of the things that we've talked about in prior podcasts is, you know, after having that child, and was your sleep like?
Oh, it was awful.
So
my first
I love
firstborn. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
My son, he was the 30-minute catnapper, and he had silent reflux,
Sure.
and it was terrifying because he would literally stop breathing in his sleep. And it was called the Angel Care Monitor. It was just out, and so it would like let you know if the kid stopped breathing or something. And so we bought one of those because he would turn like blue and purple, but he wasn't crying or anything. So that took years off of my life. So I didn't sleep at all
Sure.
because I was terrified my son was going to like die in the middle of the night.
Totally understand.
So
that.
I would literally sit in a chair like this with him on my shoulder and like hold him. But then when we did get past that stage, he still only slept for like 30 minutes, like in the afternoon. So I tried to get like everything done, you know, at that time. And then at night, maybe 6 hours, you know, if I was lucky. And then my second, she just sleeps all the time. So I'm like, how was it not reversed? Like, I'm surprised I even wanted the second one after that. It was traumatizing.
That's so funny.
Well,
But yeah,
we are
as
sitting here
moms-
with somebody who specializes in pediatrics and that, and so is that very common? The reflux. And
So it's a challenge because even so I can identify with that because my daughter was also a refluxer and she wouldn't make any noise, and then I would just find her just covered in vomit in her bassinet, and so it's a horrible thing because number one, the American Academy of Pediatrics and even the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, we have horrible recommendations. We're like, do not put them on an incline, do not co-sleep with them, do not do all these things, and we're like, so what do we do?
What are we supposed to
we just sit there and just watch them because I can tell you, I'm a sleep doctor, right? I'm a child neurologist, I'm a sleep doctor, and I had no idea what to do because my brain like could not function, and all I could think about is like, how do I survive and how do I make my child survive the night? And so you end up doing all the things that are opposite of what you're supposed to do, right? Like you should never lay in a chair with your baby because that's like one of the worst things you can do,
Right.
Because you're gonna fall asleep and then your baby's gonna fall into here, and that's where you're gonna have SIDS. And the reality is that you can't help but do that because all you're thinking about is the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, hour, and you're constantly living this state of fear. And so I do think that we're still in this state of failure of how do we give appropriate recommendations? Because at this point we say, oh, well, your child has reflux, let's give them some reflux meds. That doesn't stop them from refluxing. It just makes it less painful so it doesn't stop them from turning blue. It doesn't stop them from vomiting. It doesn't stop them from all the things that you're afraid of. So it is still very much a major.
do they grow out of it?
So generally they do. So
Okay.
part of the reason for the reflux is because just as you look at a baby and are like, a little floppy little thing, so is their esophagus, right? So the lower part of their esophagus that connects to the stomach, that still is too floppy. And so that's what's really causing it. It's not that they're eating too spicy of food or mom's eating too spicy of food or any of that. It's really just a matter of it's a developmental piece that they need to outgrow.
Now, is it more prevalent for breastfeeding versus formula?
So it depends.
So I read something about that.
So it depends. So very typically, one of the first things that we look at in a formula-fed baby is that there are specific formulas that are going to make it much more common. In a breastfeeding baby, it's challenging because we do exclusionary diets where they'll tell mom, like, stop the dairy, stop this. The reality is like you literally have to eat like a bird and you still are hoping.
That's what I did.
Yeah. No, I did the same thing. I was like, I'll eat the same exact thing for
I
breakfast, lunch, and
literally
dinner.
did that.
And you're like, they're still vomiting. I don't know what to do.
Well,
I'm gonna
it helped mine though. I was already gluten free, and then I cut out the dairy.
Yeah.
And he was like a totally different child.
Really?
After
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
No, my baby stayed the Exorcist, and I was just
The
like,
Exorcist.
and my husband's like, I feel like I'm living in Natural Geographic because I walked around like a robe, topless, with just like pajama pants
Isn't
on
it amazing
all
what
the
we-
time because I was just covered in vomit all the time. I was like, I'm done changing.
Well, it's amazing though too, as much education as you did have, but there's
Yeah.
that like mother's intuition
Well-
Oh, yeah.
that kicks in, and you're like, I don't care what they say we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like I was told to stop breastfeeding, and I'm like, nothing in me makes that sound right to me
Yeah.
as a mom. Like, so you're telling me formula is going to help my kid more than my own? Like,
Yeah.
no.
It's just a challenge of really navigating motherhood in general. And this
I
is
agree.
where, like, Matthew has heard me say this a million times of like, one of my mantras is always talking about like, I'm the expert as a physician. I'm an expert in the disease. I'm the expert in the treatments. I'm an expert in that. The reality is that the people who I'm working with, you're the expert in your own life. And so what I really think that medicine needs to go towards is saying, how do we create a partnership that helps you to navigate navigate these situations because it's not a one size fits all. It's not like tell every breastfeeding mom stop breastfeeding. It's like exactly as you're saying. Like, so you're telling me like that special time, like no matter the nutrients,
The bond.
that skin to skin, that special time, like that is so important. I don't care if anything's coming out. It's a matter of like me just having that special period with my baby.
It's interesting you say that. So my first wife wasn't able to, produce breast milk. So we did formulas, which really gave me an opportunity to have that time for feeding.
Sure.
What they suggested though was that Kelly open her, put the baby on
Skin to
and then do, and that's it. So
exactly.
they said that.
Yeah, it's
dads
called
too.
kangarooing.
Yeah.
It's called kangarooing. And there actually is clear evidence that demonstrates that skin-to-skin contact is neurodevelopmentally protective for the baby.
Really?
And so it really enhances their neurodevelopmental
Kangarooing.
outcomes.
That's awesome. I swear
I don't know if I've heard that word
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
love
and
it.
I've heard some other stuff, but we'll get there. No, so this journey that you had, and obviously becoming a mother and being the wife, there was challenges there. Obviously, the way you made it sound. If I'm saying it wrong, I apologize. We're moving around, and then you did mention a divorce, right?
Right.
And then you have 2 children, correct? Okay. So how does someone, because I did read her, so she wrote to us, so that I'm cheating a little. All of our audience, I'm cheating a little. You had talked about that. Becoming a single mother of 2, there was this catalyst in your life. Would you want to share with us what that catalyst was? And I know you had a condition.
I wrote that so long ago. I don't even remember what I wrote, but
You were
so I think it's
diagnosed
very.
with-
Oh, yeah, I was diagnosed with something, but prior to that,
Yes.
Along the way, I think a lot of moms, and I may be speaking for broadly here, but
Please.
you lose yourself. You kind of lose your identity, especially as a stay-at-home mom. I was a coach's wife, so like people would literally, hey, you're Jason so-and-so's wife,
right.
and you're Jackson, my kid's name's
Mother.
Mom. I had no one approach me as like Lacey or like I was a wife or a mom.
Yeah.
And I found myself completely lost in my own identity at that time. I was knee deep in diapers and breastfeeding, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And I'm like, and I wanted to, I'm a recovering perfectionist.
That's a first, Dan. That's the first for our podcast. We have a recovering perfectionist.
Yeah, I always thought perfectionism was something to strive for.
Yeah.
And it's so shitty. It's like the worst thing you could possibly, it's never going to happen. You could spend your whole life trying to do that, right? I actually made a post on that the other day. And after going to see the Barbie movie, because it kind of like went in line with that, I took my kids to see it. But yeah, so I was that Pinterest mom, and I like killed myself because that was when Pinterest was like really, taking off and stuff.
Yes.
And I mean, I made all my own baby food, and I made it was nuts. And I drove my freaking self crazy.
Yeah.
Trying to play the part of the perfect wife and the perfect coach's wife and the perfect mom and all that kind of stuff. And so, I really lost myself. And during that time though, I went through hell in my marriage. My husband betrayed me on several different occasions, like the worst thing you could ever go through in a marriage. And, I was left with zero self-confidence. I mean, when you go through, that kind of thing, even though you realize, and I've been in therapy now for all of that since I was like 2015 when it first happened. But,
good for you.
There's a part of you that kind of blames yourself. Like, what did I do
100%.
wrong? Am I not good enough? That kind of thing. And it
100%.
destroys your self-confidence.
Yeah.
So not only did I not have an identity, then I had like no self-confidence whatsoever either. But thank God for my faith, in God and my support system. I have an amazing family. I have amazing friends, that helped me get through that. I mean, I was literally on my hands and knees in a panic attack, and my dad had to help me off as I don't even know how old 38-year-old mom. Like, you never want to see yourself at like the rock bottom like that.
Yeah.
I fought like hell to get myself back, like literally find myself, and I had to dig deep, but that I kind of found refuge in the gym. I think a lot of women do that. I've noticed, especially in the bodybuilding world, most women who compete have a story. Like they all have gone through some crap, especially either in their childhood or in relationships or something. And maybe men also. I just, I don't
Right.
talk to men as much like that. But yeah, so I found the gym, and that's when I started lifting heavily. I found I ran into a friend in the her and I went to high school together. We weren't friends in high school. We knew of each other, but we ran into each other at a Texas State football association thing, and we connected. And she was in the bodybuilding world. She was a coach, and then she also competed. And she saw me, and she had seen like my my transformation, because I really did. I mean, I was never like overweight or anything, and I always worked out, but my kids didn't sleep, right? So I would literally do like the P90X or like Insanity or something, like 30 minutes.
That.
Like
I love that.
when I could at home, I did. And my kids had separation anxiety, so I couldn't even use like the gym kids thing.
Sure.
So I did what I could at home. But I actually started, like, before I even started lifting, I got into running. That was kind of my safe haven too. That was my escape. And since my son didn't sleep, I would put him in the bob stroller, take off run, and he fell asleep. So I would run for 5 or 6 miles because he would be asleep and I could get exercise. I did my first half marathon when he was like 6 months old. And I had never even like run a block before that.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. So that's kind of where that started. But yeah, my girlfriend Amber, she kind of was like, you should totally do like a bikini show. And I'm like, what the heck is that? Like I started getting into it and stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I loved how self-confident all of the women looked on stage.
Sure.
And not even like just the stage presence and everything. And I've always been attracted to like women with muscle and that kind of thing. I love it. It's so powerful to me and like motivating and inspiring. And so I was like, yeah, I want to do that.
Well, I want to jump in here. So, Lacey, thank you for sharing your story. I think that it takes courage, right? And hindsight's always great, right?
Yeah.
We could look back at our journey and see where we were and see where we are. I think the message that's really going to resonate to our audience is that you can get through this. And in the depths of, I think all of us in some way, right? And everybody has a story where they rise up. And you get to that point, and it sounds like you got there where you even use the words on your hands and knees, right? Where you either sink or swim.
Yep.
And that motivating factor could have been, and I believe that was that support system, but it was you. And I think that there was this eternal fire, obviously, that you still have that had to drive you to something. Now, we have you on the podcast because of these reasons and your fitness. But I love that your backstory, you started off being, and really do appreciate you sharing, is that, starting from kind of a broken place and kind of where you are now. I'm curious because I'm the same way as you, is that my therapy at first, before I actually went to therapy, was running. And then it was the gym. And then I found people at the gym that thought like I did. And then I found this other new community that lifted me up. And I found like this whole different community in a different age group that I was, right? Meaning the people that I grew up with were all doing the same stuff. They're still at the bar, still doing the same thing. But now I had this like new community of people that we liked being healthy. We like challenging each other.
Yeah,
we like holding each
difference.
other accountable. And so I think that's that story you shared that I definitely want to highlight, is that you were resilient, right? And that, again, hindsight, looking back on it now, even in your face when you were talking about it, you can kind of tell, you're like, I don't know if I want to go talk about it. But it's important to share, because there are people that listen to our podcast and maybe even watch our podcast that are where you were.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that some of the things that really resonate with me and things that I hear on a regular basis is some of the loss that you've experienced is something that I hear so common, right? And so it's not just women after they have children, men also, where they're like, this is a new role where now I'm identifying as dad or a provider, and like I don't even know who I am or what I'm supposed to be, and it's such a different direction than what I anticipated. And then women similarly, of whether they are stay-at-home mom or or for myself, like I did not choose to be a stay-at-home mom. I continued to do my career, but the guilt I felt for continuing my career and like feeling like I have a nanny raising my children, right? And so like either way, there are these trade-offs that we're constantly trying to negotiate to say, how do we define ourselves and how do we define our course? And I think some of the things that I'm hearing that I hope that our audience really takes away is that if you're identifying that you're in this difficult place of self-awareness, self-identification, how do you take some of the words that Lacey has just shared with us of saying like, that's okay. It's okay. It's a matter of acknowledging it and then defining what does the path forward look like. And so the path forward for her was not that she looked in a mirror one day and said, I don't like how I look.
Right.
She looked at her life and said, I want more of great. I want more of a life that I feel proud of that I can define as being who I am. And it wasn't a matter of ego. It wasn't a matter of looks. It wasn't a matter of vanity. It was a matter of fulfillment. And so I think that when you hear this and you hear about like my journey to a bikini competition, people automatically are going to turn an eye to going, oh, she just wanted to be the pretty girl on stage. It has nothing to do with that. No. It has to do with feeling like I've accomplished something. This is the road to success. This is a road to physical health.
Yep.
And the reality is that that's something I think people can really identify with.
Yeah, and whatever that goal is. And again, I want to state this because I just learned this recently with someone that I'm in a relationship with. When she told me she was in the bikini category, I was like, well, what is that? Because I'm used to bodybuilding. Man, it's hard work.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you right now, it is hard work.
It is discipline on another level.
A whole different respect. So y'all need to Google this because it's a classification all of its own, and it's just amazing. But whatever that goal is for someone, whether they want to go back to school or whether they want to start a different job or a different career. So that kind of pivots me, right, into our
It's
conversation.
all about finding your purpose.
Right.
Yes.
Well,
right?
and so you became,
mature.
you used this experience and became a coach. Talk to us about how the heck, because you said that your friend was.
Yeah.
Is
So
that the journey?
Well, yeah. So I did my first bikini competition back in 2018, and kind of going back to what you said, after that, I think what happened was I was under chronic stress from the marriage that I was in and stuff. And then I put myself into more chronic stress by competing because no matter how you dice it, stress is stress on your body. And I talk about that. I mean, that's like the number one thing that I deal with my clients all the time: sleep and stress.
We're going to jump into that soon. Ooh.
And they all go together, right?
Yes.
But so, I think just, dieting down is a stress on your body. Working out I was like one of those, like, I didn't know, like, you don't know what you don't know, right? And I was that, 7 day a week, like, got to be in the gym. Because again, I was kind of using that as my therapy, which
A release.
to clarify, like, nothing ever replaces actual therapy, right? Like with a therapist, counselor, that kind of thing. So I want to make sure people know that. But yeah, so I pretty much just destroyed my body. Going from chronic state of stress to competing, and it all kind of came unraveled. And then that following spring, I was diagnosed. I knew something was wrong. I had like every symptom possible of like a thyroid disease, and finally went to a functional health doctor, and all the blood work came back, and I had Hashimoto's, which is a autoimmune disorder that attacks your thyroid. And I also had hypothyroidism. So I kind of dove into that, hired a functional nutrition coach to help me because my hormones were wrecked. My testosterone level was like 2. And so, I did a whole long year journey of literally, I had to dial back on everything I knew. Like he took away my weightlifting and he was like, you're going to walk and do yoga. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? I had to like totally change my diet up, totally change my lifestyle. He wanted me sleeping, like 8 to 9 hours, no matter what.
Yeah.
Getting up, walking with, like when the sun came up, going to bed, like helping my circadian rhythm, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And she's just throwing you softballs.
I know.
I'm like, yes, go ahead, keep going. Keep going.
But it's true. Like getting back to the basic foundations, I think people so often, like they want to throw all these other things. And I'm like, dude, you're not even doing the basics. And I hadn't. I was way off track at that point, and I needed to, 2 weeks into his protocol, and my body was like, oh, thank you, because I was super inflamed. I had like a Hashimoto's flare up. So yeah, it was in 2020, like the world shut down, and I was like, well, I can't use gyms anyway. I might as well like do this protocol that he wants me to do. So that's when I did that. And then I worked with him. I had been coaching already after my show.
And when you say coaching, just to clarify for our audience,
sorry,
go ahead.
yeah, I was doing
because earlier you're saying coach's wife, so we just want to be
different
very
type,
clear, different type
coach.
of okay.
Yeah, I went. I started with my girlfriend Amber and another friend Tara, and it was called Team Relentless at the time, and we helped a lot of women. We do macro coaching, macro coaching, and workouts, and we did a bunch of like group coaching and stuff too, and a lot of challenges because a lot of women like that kind of thing, like a 30-day challenge and stuff like that. And then I kind of decided once I did the functional nutrition for myself, I realized how many women needed help other than just macros and workouts.
Sure.
Right. And especially getting older, I was talking, every woman that I talked to seem to have a thyroid issue, and come to find out, just like 1 in 4 women that have it. And so I would talk to them, and like just them telling me their symptoms or looking at them, I'm like, you need to go get blood work, because I already know you either have insulin resistance going on, estrogen dominance, or a thyroid
I think
issue.
I'm going to leave. When Ann starts talking, you watch this. This is going to be awesome.
I know.
But yeah, so I kind of dove into that, and I actually, the company that I was working with that I hired as a coach, they actually took me on board to do an apprenticeship for 6 months to get a coaching spot with them.
Gotcha.
And I did that, and I learned to the cellular level. It felt like I was back in college again, which I'm such a nerd about all that kind of stuff. Like I love it. And so, but yeah, I learned all about, gut health, and because my gut was wrecked too. So I had to do I had gut dysbiosis, and I had to heal my hormones, thyroid. We learned all about that. So once I finished and I got accepted to coach with them, but at the time it was just not a good fit for me. Sure. And so I declined that, but then I was still coaching. I decided to break away from Team Relentless at the time, because once I knew all of that stuff, I couldn't just coach macros and workouts anymore. And so that's when I started kind of doing, the whole functional side of things with women, and kind of went on my own. But I kind of treated it, I didn't have to work. I was still married at the time. I was still a stay-at-home mom. I did this mainly for friends or acquaintances, like where I live, and then referrals from them. And I treated it more of like a hobby kind of thing versus a business, because I wasn't in it to make money, if that makes sense.
Sure. Well, it was a passion project.
I think that's called a calling and serving.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I wasn't marketing myself and all that kind of stuff. Right. And then fast forward to like, I got a divorce, and I'm like, crap, I have to get back into the career world now. And I was kind of thrown into that pretty quickly, where I had to get a job, and the coaching, you have to market yourself, and you have to, and it's not 100% like that. Clients are always going to be there. They're going to drop off or whatever. And, the economy too can play a big role in that, of what people can afford. And so this was last summer, I actually got a job offer to teach PE at my kids' private school. And so I'm like, well, I have to take that. I needed a salary and benefits and all that, being on my own for the first time. And so I
it also usually gets a discount for the kids' school.
Yes, my kids get to go to school for free. So I cannot pass that up.
Can't pass that up. That's a good one, right?
So yeah,
you're like, I won't even take a salary. That's
all right. I'm going to say this for our visual people. Dan, could you imagine walking into the first day of PE class? Coach Washington's going to be, who's going to be our coach? Oh, hi, Coach Washington.
Well, and I coach, I teach PE to kindergarten through 8th graders. So it's a wide, I got the middle school
being 8th grade, that wouldn't have worked out. That would
No.
not have worked out well at all. That would not have worked out.
Too
That just
funny.
means that you're very attractive.
Well, thank you.
Just so if y'all didn't read between the lines. I think that two things there before I jump in, because I love this. So Ann has taught me some stuff since the time we've been together. And people, and especially mothers, who go through this, they're just tired because they're mothers or they're this,
Yes.
and they never go see a doctor to get simple blood work. And then, of course, we would also say a sleep test, but they never get it done. And then all your stuff that came back is stuff that. So I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, well, I just think that many of the things that are being described are important to consider, and I think that one of the things that is challenging, even in traditional medicine, is that when patients bring thoughts around functional medicine or exercise, nutrition, massage therapy, chiropractics, Reiki, things like that. All of a sudden, doctors just like turn a blind eye and say like it's not based in science. And so one of the things that I loved that when I was training in neurology, I had an attending that always would quote Carl Sagan and say the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence, right? And so the reality is that a lot of these things like functional medicine and utilizing nutrition as a healing power, and even if you were to talk about things like massage therapy or Reiki, et cetera, just because there hasn't been randomized controlled trials to evaluate them to say yes or no doesn't mean that they lack evidence to substantiate meaningful change. And so I think that the journey that you've been on, where there are probably some listeners who are healthcare providers going, oh, dismiss this because it's not based in traditional science.
We had a dry needling person on, and one of the biggest feedbacks that I got from my MD friends of, I said, have you ever had it done?
Yeah.
No, why would I get it done? I said, well, I get it done a lot.
Yeah. And so
it works.
I think the challenge is that just being clear, like it's not that I'm just going to say, oh, anecdotal medicine, because I never want people to believe me just because I say in my experience, right? That's the lowest level of evidence. But the reality is that when you see a consistent pattern of people, when you see someone who's able to make an entire career around transforming other people's lives by looking at the basics, going back to the basics, who we are, what we eat, we are how we sleep, we are what we do, right? And so when you are not taking those basic constructs and applying them on a day-to-day basis in a consistent fashion, you are only going to see inflammation and illness and sickness and mental unwell and all of that. And so I think that the reality is that a lot of the things that Lacey has highlighted are an important component to just the basic constructs where many times I think that I've encountered other peers within my field where they would just turn a complete blind eye because they're not seeing the New England Journal of Medicine article that's saying that this is the way that you're supposed to utilize it. But I can say the same exact thing about sleep medicine in general because the primary care doctor or the specialty doctor doesn't have the right reference to be able to say, yes, this substantiates why you should have a change in practice and why you should consider this and why you should listen to the patient in front of you. The patient has the answer. You are the expert in the disease. You are expert in the science that is known. You are expert in the treatments that are available. You are not an expert in the person, in their life, and the things that they're telling you about their own experiences.
Yeah. And Lacey, I'm sure you come in contact or have come in contact with people that you've coached that you've witnessed these amazing transformations too, right?
Right.
And so playing a part in that is another reason why, I wanted you on the podcast, right? I lived my life most recently by a book called The Go-Giver, and it talked about, and your journey is pretty much the same. At the very beginning of our journey as adulthood, we sacrifice, right? Then we save, and now we serve, right? And every part of that is a different phase for everybody, different, right?
Sure.
Even though I look 30, I'm almost 50. So I'm in the serving season of my life, and so just in the short conversation we've had so far, I've heard the sacrifice, the saving, and now the serving. And so it started, there had to be something within you that said, this is my calling because of what it did for me. I want to pass it on. Does that sound correct?
Yeah.
Or was it, because I know it couldn't have been just financial.
No.
And I want to just clarify for our audience, because you're like, so when I got divorced, I knew I had to do, it had to be something.
Yeah, no, her story very clearly tells you that there's a passion behind it.
Yeah.
It was transformative for her, and that the women that she's empowering through her education and experience is transformative.
Yep.
Well, and that's I gear my health and fitness coaching now towards women, busy working women, but also moms, because
Sure.
it's very hard to find a balance without help.
Yes.
Trying to be that mom, and I so often see my friends, my mom friends, and just moms in general, and then all the clients that I've worked with, and they put themselves on the back burner. They don't have any self-worth. They have
Yes.
no self-confidence, and they don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yes.
just getting back to basic foundations, healthy habits, little by little. And I think I get a lot of messages too that they're like, I really want to work with you, but I'm very intimidated. And I'm like, okay, look, I meet you where you're at. Like I have, my goals are totally different from your goals, totally different from
Sure.
somebody else's goals. And I'm not going to make you do anything like that. We're going to start where you're at, and we're going to kind of just, little by little. That's how habits are built. That book, Atomic Habits, or their habit stacking, is awesome. And so I try to use that with all of my clients too. But yeah, really just trying to, there's nothing more that, as a coach, I always tell them, like, your success is my success.
Sure.
And when I see that, when you get to help them transform their life, and like, especially their, their mental, that mental part is
Sure.
even more important than the physical part.
Sure.
And when they make those changes and the kind of the light bulb, turns on, and you see that, and you see this woman that a lot of women have similar stories that, like, as mine, and they come to you kind of broken. And then when just hitting those habits and hitting their macros and getting their workouts, and that builds self-confidence. And when you see that, and the transformation that happens, and like the strength that is from within, like,
Sure.
I can't even, like, that makes me, I know my purpose, and that makes me so freaking excited to like do that every single day. And so that's why I am, working for myself now too, and coaching and doing that on my own. I'm still PE teacher, but then I'm also doing that. So
And remind me what the name of your company is.
Yeah.
it's Lacey Michelle Fitness.
Okay.
So Lacey
Wonderful.
Michelle
Yeah.
Fitness. So here's the challenge we're going to have for you, Lacey.
Yes.
So and anytime that we have a guest on, we want to say this. So in your coaching, tell us how you coach sleep, or do you? If you don't, that's fine. Or what part does sleep play in your coaching?
Oh, it's a huge role, and it's something that I struggled with. I always coined myself as the night owl, because as moms, and
yeah, once they go to bed, I could get stuff done.
yes, or mindlessly sit in front of the TV because I haven't
Yes.
gotten anything done all day, right?
Yes.
And so I finally just want
Yes.
some me time.
Yeah.
There you
And so yeah, I relate to moms very well, because A, I have been the stay-at-home mom, but now B, I'm the working mom too. And that was a huge freaking transition for me too, because I'd always be like, when I was coaching moms and women before, when I was a stay-at-home mom, I'm like, what do you like? Why can't you get your workout in? And then now that I am like teaching
Sure.
out or working outside the home, I'm like, shit, it is a
Yeah.
little bit more difficult.
Sure.
to do.
Sure.
So I can empathize with them, and I relate so much better now to all, like, working and stay-at-home moms. But yeah, the sleep is, and I have to meet them where they're at. If they have newborns or little kids, I know that, like, asking them to get 9 hours of sleep is not going to be, like, especially if they're co-sleeping or something like that, right?
Sure.
But just making sure, and I use an app with my coaching, and I put healthy habits in there that they have to like check off the box. And so if I know that I have a digital detox that I can put in there, like where they're detoxing before bed. So like cut all the blue lights off, like, TVs, phones, that kind of thing, an hour before bedtime. So like
That's
sleep
a
hygiene.
great one.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
So I do that, and then I'll have, try to wind, or so I do, it's called a brain dump. I have them do. So like a lot of women will just, what do? We lay down in bed and like, oh my God, I got to do this, and I got to do this. And tomorrow, and so I'm like, okay, take that, because it's just going to keep going in your head. Have a freaking journal or something by your bed and write it all down.
Hold
get it
on.
out.
She said most women. I have been on this podcast and been
As a
taped
man
saying,
too.
I do that every night.
Yep.
I have to journal
love it.
everything. It's part of our sleep hygiene.
Yeah.
And I do that. So it's not just it's men
Yeah.
too.
Well,
Men too.
I don't have many men clients.
It's
So,
just,
but yeah, so
That's a good one, too. Those
yeah,
are
I
two
call
good-
it the brain dump. And when
Yeah.
when women start doing that, and I have to remind myself, it's so easy to tell others to do it, right? And then I'm like,
100%.
oh, I need to do it myself. But yeah,
Well,
so
hold on. Ann
yeah.
taught me something that I really appreciated because that works for me, and I can go right to sleep after that.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that if they were to write it down, Lacey, they'd go, "Oh no, now it's
Oh,
even more
anxiety?
Yeah,
Yeah.
versus and she taught. Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So
Yeah.
so when in those types of individuals, we'll generally make a recommendation to do the brain dump, but to reserve that time for earlier in the day.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
instead of doing it when you're getting ready for bed, just because that can be a positive
Yep.
reinforcement for even more anxiety and ruminating.
I've seen that too. And
Yeah.
so what I have those clients do is I'll have them do gratitude journaling before bed.
That's a great
so
idea.
I have them write down like 2 or 3 things that they're grateful for, or even like positive affirmations
That's
or
great.
something. That way they are going to bed like on a positive note versus
That's wonderful.
that.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, I'm also big on like, blood sugar is like a big thing for me, because a lot of people don't know that thyroid is tied into blood sugar. And so I was like pre-diabetic when I was first diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And so like after dinner, like before bed, or not before bed, but after dinner, like when the sun's going down, like getting outside, getting some fresh air, going for like just a walk around the block or something helps kind of reset that circadian rhythm, helps you kind of get into, and having a bedtime routine
Yes.
is super. I mean, that's helpful for kids and for adults. And so that, that's
it
what I'm-
definitely allows your body to kind of have its natural transition, right? And so a lot of times people get frustrated by the fact that sleep is supposed to be a quote unquote natural process, right? And so we get frustrated by like, why do I need a routine, or why do I need to
Yeah.
do any type of process in order for my body to know to go to sleep? And so frequently I'll kind of reframe that question back to them and go, do you know anyone who's overweight or obese? Do they know when they should stop eating?
Yeah.
I mean, eating is a natural process, and our brains are supposed to be trained to know when we're full.
so true, yeah.
But the reality is that we develop maladaptive behaviors, right? We overindulge, we push ourselves past the limit, we ignore our own internal warning signs, right? Because of whatever the circumstance might be. I really like the taste of this, or I really want to watch the end of this show, and so these types of behaviors of saying like, we're going to create habits that are nurturing your transition of your brain going from 90 miles per hour to slowing down to a yield to a stop is critically important in order to really maintain kind of wellness initiatives.
Yeah.
And I also think the other piece, when you're talking about blood sugars and you're talking about overall sense of health, a lot of these activities are also going to have other secondary positive consequence, because when I'm taking myself out of that ruminating state, I'm taking myself out of a stress state, which where my autonomic nervous system is in a sympathetic
Cortisol.
drive, my cortisol, my insulin resistance, my everything. That's going to put me in a dynamic where I'm storing fat, I'm making more sugar, I'm feeling like crap, right? Where it's now allowing me to actually create the hormones and the nutritional substances that are necessary. I also love the fact that you referenced earlier that the dysbiosis in the microbiome, right? And so this is something that we 100% are overlooking. And I tell people, I just recently had spoken on this at the American Academy of Sleep Medicine about the relationship with the microbiome and sleep and development and all these different outcomes. And I said, I remember when I was a resident, and this is like 15 years ago, and someone was like, oh, the microbiome. And I was like, listen, I'm a neurologist. You're not going to tell me some gut germs are telling my brain what to do. Like, I totally
Gut germs.
dismissed it. Like, listen, no, there's no way. And now I'm like the full 180. I'm like, listen, did you take your pre-probiotics? Do you know do you know how many different components of did you know that there's fermenters? And
Digestive
did you know that? And
enzymes.
it's a completely different ball game now, because I'm like,
all tied
listen,
together.
it's all tied together. And so I'm always telling people, I'm like really looking at the whole person and the whole journey, right? Makes a huge difference. And so it is a matter of that you can't segment and say, I'm going to work out and I'm going to look great and I'm going to feel great. and maybe I might eat the right things, or
Yeah.
maybe I might drink the right things, or maybe I might sleep the right way, or maybe I might acknowledge that I have hormonal imbalance, or maybe I might so you can't segment these things all out. But the reality is that in the practice of medicine, we do, right? What do you have wrong with? Oh, you need to see this specialist. What do you have this? Oh, no, not that specialist, this specialist. And then it's left up to the person who's unknowing to say, how do I synthesize all of this?
Well, they're all unknowing, but you get on the internet and they're told 20 million different things
Oh, the
too,
internet.
right? And so it's like they are just overwhelmed
Yes.
with knowledge.
Yeah.
WebMD is good and bad.
Yeah.
Oh,
They're going to find an answer for anything, right?
Sure.
Well, but that's why I also, I want to, when I coach you, I want to know everything. So like my check-ins every week with my clients are, how was your sleep? How many hours did you get? Like what quality of sleep did you get? Like how much water are you drinking? How many steps are you taking? Like what's your stress level? Because that is all like huge components of whether or not you're going to be successful and make progress.
Yeah.
And so, when you're not, or, like if you're not making progress and you're just kind of looking at like, oh, well, you didn't, hit your workouts, but yeah, she got like 4 hours of sleep every single day. Like that's going to make a difference.
Yeah.
And
And the reality is a lot of people don't realize that sleep has such a significant component too when you're working out. So for instance, if you look at like my area of expertise is in narcolepsy, and you look at one of the mainstays of treatments that we use for narcolepsy, it's either Xyrem or Xywav, sodium oxybate, low sodium oxybate. We now have Lumryz, which is a once nightly sodium oxybate. This was a drug that was initially utilized in the 1970s, but it was highly used by competitive athletes and weight trainers in the late 90s and early 2000s. Why? Because what it does is it actually changes your sleep architecture to spend more time in slow wave sleep. When you spend more time in slow wave sleep, you actually are greatly increasing the amount of growth hormone your body's producing. And so that's something that many people who are in competitive bodybuilding, et cetera, they're taking that, and they're taking it through other extraordinary means, right? And so the reality is that they had found this miracle medication that allows for your body to naturally produce more of it. And so there is a lot of the component of the recovery, but this is also a reason why when we put our kiddos to sleep at night and we go, wow, I feel like you grew an inch or 2 inches. Well, it's because they did. They truly did. They actually spend, developmentally, you spend more time in slow wave sleep in early childhood than you do in adulthood. And the reason for that is because it has significant components in terms of not only your growth development, but also in terms of your neurocognitive and neurodevelopmental development as well. And so it is really important to look at the fact that we think about sleep as like this period of rest and restoration, and thinking about it as like this inactivity. It's just letting your body kind of recover. But the reality, there's a lot of active components that are going on that truly help in facilitating all those metabolic changes that you purposely induced during your activities and during choosing what you're eating, to allow to actually put it to the maximum action for you to truly appreciate the greatest degree of benefit. And the truth is that when you do the opposite, the negative also occurs. So when I'm not sleeping well or I'm having dysfunctional sleep, what happens to my hormones? We discuss it. Cortisol goes up, but then you also have dysfunctions in your leptin and ghrelin. And so leptin and ghrelin are really important hormones in terms of your food-seeking behavior, your sense of feeling full. And what happens is that they put them in an inverse where you're never full, you're always hungry, and you choose poorer quality foods. There's tons of studies that demonstrate that when you look at adolescents, for instance, who are chronically getting the wrong number of hours of sleep, that their average caloric intake is almost double those who are getting the right number of hours of sleep.
Really?
And so the reality is that this is all not by accident or just by circumstance. This is truly by design. And so by taking feedback from someone who like yourself has the expertise of kind of synthesizing all of this, you really are more likely to achieve the optimal outcomes that you're really looking for. And so for all of the people who are listening to this, whether you're a man or a woman, you have kids, you don't have kids, you're a working mom, you're a stay-at-home mom, whatever it might be, the reality is taking advantage of the expertise of someone like Lacey and being able to go to her site and be able to kind of take heed of some of her guidance. That's going to put you on a road to just better days ahead.
Absolutely.
And the reality is that it's not just a matter of cosmetic, oh, I want to look good. The reality is that there is such long-term beneficial effects to your overall health when you're really incorporating all of these factors.
I mean, I think that's where it comes down to, in the past, what I've always thought about. I'm very open about my genetics and where I come from and what certain people in my family look like and what I look like, right? And I learned early on that I only have one body, right? And I need to take care of this body. I need to do everything that I can. I need to move. I need to water it. I need to, train. I need to do things because whether or not you have hereditary things in your family, the truth is that, man, we are becoming more and more of a fat society.
75% of adult Americans are overweight
I
or
hate
obese.
the word fat shame, but it's true. We're, and people
it's
are weight.
lifestyle,
And when I travel quite a bit. I'm on a plane a lot. And I've been in a different town almost every night, and just watching people get around on a plane or walk, and it's painful. And these people are not that old.
Their quality of life is not good.
So I think also what you offer is hope. So I'm sure you have success stories. You shared that you do have those where, where someone looks like this and now they look like this, and what happened? Their life just got better, as opposed to just saying, well, it's okay to be heavy.
Yeah,
It's
and
okay
again,
to be-
it's again. I think that your point is saying like
I'm trying to be careful how I'm saying it.
None of this conversation is to shame people
Right.
for
No,
feeling as
absolutely
though
not.
that if I have an elevated body mass index or that I am perhaps even genetically predisposed, because there are true genetic conditions that make you predisposed to being overweight. None of that is saying that this is us calling fault or that you should be embarrassed. It's a matter of us saying that there are options that we want to discuss of like, how do we optimize a journey? How do we get you to a point where you feel incentivized, where you feel it's realistic, where you feel it's approachable? And I think that's the conversation we need to have, because it is an overwhelming consideration. And I'm sure you've probably had this with your own clients, where maybe before they were married and before they had kids, they were 105 pounds. They were like this. Right. And now they're 5 years into a marriage, and they're 205 pounds. Right. That feels like a world of difference. You've almost doubled your entire body weight, and you now don't even know how to potentially make any headway. And again, it's not a matter of shaming or saying someone did something wrong or that they should be embarrassed or anything. It's a matter of saying like, what starting point do you want to have, and then how do we move forward from that starting point?
And that's my point. I think, Lacey, I'm going to call you a hope dealer. You are a hope dealer, and anybody who's listening, if you're in this rut and you're just like, I just don't know where to start, this is where you start. You know, they reach out to you and you develop a program just specifically for them. And not everybody's on the same journey.
No,
not
at
all.
There's just no way that's possible. And so
I can't do a bikini competition. It's just not in my schedule.
And honestly, I don't coach those women. I coach lifestyle women, and I don't want them to want to do something that they're not. But it's funny because every woman comes to me wanting to be a certain weight.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so if you reach that certain weight, what is that going to do for you? Right. Half the time that they are happy with the body that they build, and the number has nothing to do with it.
Agreed.
Well, it's just like when I went to my trainer, she goes, what do you want to do? I said, Brad Pitt Fight Club. She says she gets that all the time. Brad Pitt Fight Club. I swear.
You're dating yourself with that one.
That's all right. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, Fight Club, one of the greatest movies ever. And Brad Pitt is still very handsome. But we have this vision in our head. That's a joke, everybody, but it is a great movie. But we have this vision in our head, and I'm sure they do that. They're like, when I start with you, I want to look like this at the end of it, or I want to.
And many times it's a prior version of themselves, right?
Wow.
Like, I want to be that 105 pounds because that's what I was when I got married.
Yeah.
And so their vision is just recreating the prior vision of themselves, whether it was truly them or how they perceived themselves.
Well, and I literally made a post on Instagram yesterday about how to build muscle and train in your 40s, because what worked for us in our 20s is not going to work for us in our 40s.
Yes.
And it's back to the basics. Like sleep was my number one thing.
Agreed.
And because that's your testosterone's going to go up, your cortisol is going to go down if you get the right amount of sleep all the time. And then just, training's going to look different, diet, lifestyle, it's just all different. And so, but yeah, I think they have that preconceived notion of like, oh, I got to do this, and I got to do that. Like I did when I was 20. I'm like, no.
And I think one of the other big fallacies that many people experience as they're getting older is thinking that diet and exercise equals eating salads and just running for endless periods of time. And the reality is that probably is actually doing you more injustice than it is doing.
Especially if you do have, hormone issues or something. Strength training is going to be your best bet.
I was just going to say, because muscle is going to burn more calories, and in reality,
metabolism up
100%. And so it's funny because a lot of people will look at me and they go, "Oh, you must be a runner." And I go, no. And my husband even is like, "No, do you know how many fake pictures I have of her pretend running in different activities?" No, I'm not a runner because I'm wearing heels like this in the majority of the time. But I do weight training, right? And for me, that is one of the biggest successes that I experience.
Absolutely.
And I'm not trying to lift big weights. I'm generally anywhere between like that 5 to 15 pound weight. And I am like, and we were talking about this earlier, I'm like a scrutinizer of form, right? It's like a matter of having the most meticulous, perfect form, making sure my shoulders in the right place, not rolling them, and always making sure I'm isolating the muscle that I'm actually 100%.
I see a ton of people just throwing weights around, and I'm like, you're literally
You just
not
said
even.
that.
I did.
Not
I
even
literally
working the
I'm like, I
muscle
don't know
right.
what you're doing. You're like,
I know.
Well, it's mostly the men that want to lift the heavier
Yes.
weights that don't need to be lifted.
but I also see it for the women who are truly trying. They just aren't really quite certain of the right movements. But the reality is, I think that one of the biggest things that I can say is that it's so important. Also, not only like you can talk about diet, you can talk about form, you can talk about all these things, but the reality is the biggest driver behind change culture, right? Behind being able to choose that this is a new path I'm going to go around is actually being able to make sure that you have the education, being able that you have the tools, but then also being able to have the team. Right.
Yep.
And so because that creates the accountability to utilize
100%.
all of those other pieces.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that you're affording people.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing. I tell all my clients, like, I want to educate you. I am the type of person that I need to know why I'm doing something in order for me to do it. And so I'm not just going to throw some stuff at you. Like, we're going to sit down, we have a Zoom call, and we're going to discuss, like, this is your program, this is why we're doing it.
Yep.
Get their feedback, have them, ask me any questions or whatever. Because I want to work as a team. Like, I am going to give you the tools, I'm going to give you the knowledge, but you're going to have to put it into action. And so, and make those lifestyle changes. A lot of people want to make those changes, but they want to change nothing, right? They want change, but don't want to change anything. And
or
so,
they want to change everything, but then can't.
but yeah, I see a lot of the yo-yo, dieters and stuff. And so trying to get them out of that head. I'm like, look, what you've been doing is not working. So we need to reinvent the wheel. Most of the time they need to be dieted up is what I call it, like a reverse diet, because they've been in a caloric deficit for way too long. And so all of their metabolism is shot, their hormones are shot. And so actually fueling their body with fuel in a way, I do macro track. I have them do macros, and a lot of people, there's this misconstrued conception of the macros of like where, I can eat whatever I want as long as it fits. I'm like, no. We're still going to do the 80-20 rule. Like 80% I want nutrient dense foods. That 20% is what keeps you, in line and not feeling restricted. So you can go out and have pizza with your kids or have a glass of wine with your husband or something and enjoy it. Just track it, log it, and move on.
So I can have a glass of wine even though I don't have a husband?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank God. No,
but yeah, so that's what,
Well, that's funny that you say that, because a lot of people think that, and there could be somebody in our audience that thinks, well, if I have a coach, then I can't have a life. I can't enjoy. And most of the people that's in my community, we have fun.
Yeah.
And we have a really good time. We work hard and we play hard, right? But you're right. It's not when we were 20s and 30s where we treat every night like Saturday night, every morning like Monday morning. We have to rest.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring it back.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say that a lot of that same applies to sleep, right? So we always are preaching on like best quality sleep, et cetera, but we're also realistic of recognizing that not every day are you going to be able to get the right quality, right duration, right timing of sleep. And so it really is a matter of saying, how can you achieve that balance, but not only achieve that balance, but also have the awareness when you're out
Being
of balance.
mindful. Yep.
right? And so those are the things that I think are really key here.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's where a coach comes in because they're going to hold you accountable to that. And like
Yes.
I do weekly check-ins, so I'm like, yo, you're not getting, you're only getting 5 hours of sleep. Like we need, what
But
can we do?
here's the cool thing about that, and you know me, Mr. Half Full of it. They're telling you the truth.
Yeah, no.
I
And that's-
love that.
I
mean,
love it. And
I
that's-
think that
that's-
you've built a relationship with your clients where they're honest with you.
Yeah.
They probably know you're going to fuss at them in their mind, but they're being honest with you.
Yeah.
They could have
Yeah.
lied. Oh
Yeah.
man, I slept 8 hours every night.
Yeah.
It's
No,
great.
I have a great rapport with my clients, and I feel like they trust me and I
That's
trust
good.
them. And so because I let them know, like, I can only go off of what you tell me.
Sure,
So if you're
sure.
spending the money and wanting to do this, like, I want to be able to help you, but I have to be able to get the information from you in order to do that. And so they're pretty good about that kind of thing.
Well, Lacey, I know that you, number one, thank you for coming today. And I want to leave on a couple notes real quick. So, Lacey, please get out all your information that you want our audience to have and how they can get a hold of you. If it's just through that website, that's fine. Go ahead. Give it to them.
Excuse me. Yes. So you can find me on Instagram, Lifting with Lace. And then I do have a website. It's Lacey Michelle Fitness. On Instagram too, I have a type form that you can fill out for one-on-one coaching. I do offer macro fitness, but it's all lifestyle. I mean, we're going to dive into everything to help you lose weight, build muscle, change your lifestyle, get healthier.
And just feel good.
Yeah, just
Feel good, feel beautiful, right?
Feel good, look good, and get your sexy back. That's
There
my,
you go.
my big
You
thing.
took my freaking life. So,
But wait, I have
I
one
was reading your
question.
mind.
Go ahead.
I have one question.
yeah.
When you went to go see the Barbie movie, how many people thought you were the Barbie?
Oh
No.
my gosh, I hate that too. I was at Dutch Bros getting coffee the other day, and they started singing that. They're like, "Oh, you're giving Barbie vibes," and I'm like, "Okay, can I at least be fitness Barbie?"
Yeah, exactly.
The muscular
no,
Barbie.
like you're totally
was-
like slaying it.
So I was gonna say, gosh dang, it stole my thunder, but that you deserve it. So we will also have these links at the bottom of our YouTube, and so if you go to our YouTube channel, whenever this is airing, you'll be able to click onto your links with permission. But I wanted to say that so in the synopsis, when I first met Lacey, she wrote all this stuff, and that's what I was gonna say. One of the things that caught my, I read it to you today, even that you want to make women feel sexy again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so important. Ann and I throw that word around quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of was goofing around. I was telling my dad, I was like, yeah, Ann and I were talking about this logo and it's not as sexy. And my dad's 77. He's like, sexy. So I think sometimes we throw it around, but I think what you mean is that you want to bring people back to feeling good about themselves. I think
Self-confidence, yeah.
we had an episode where we talked about sleep divorces, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
you're apart from each other. I mean, there's nothing better than a couple that when they get healthy together or
Yeah.
one person comes back up and they
100%.
bring back the magic in
Yeah.
their relationship.
Yeah.
And then they sleep together and then
Yeah.
they sleep together. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I just feel like that's all connected. And,
Yeah.
and I love that that's what you do. And I know your posts and you're
Yeah.
just, very,
Well, and I think that women, they lose that, especially moms. They lose that sexy feeling, and then
Right.
a lot of the husbands, like, they don't feel desirable and stuff
Mm-hmm.
anymore. That's a huge, loss of connection there.
Sure.
But for some reason, I think moms feel like they all of a sudden, after having kids, have to cover themselves up. And they
Yes.
can't be sexy. They can't show their
Yes.
midsection. They can't wear a bikini on the beach. And I'm like, why the hell not?
Yeah.
Just because you're a mom doesn't
Agreed.
mean that you're still you. You're still the person that you were before
Yeah.
you had kids. And I lost that. And I look back at
So you're
pictures and I'm
preaching it,
like,
yeah.
what was wrong with me?
Yeah.
But it makes you feel so empowered and it gives you that self-confidence. And like, you can totally rock a freaking bikini and still have kids by you. My kids
Agreed.
are used to it.
Agreed.
And I mean, they're like,
Mine too. Mine too.
I mean, I'm sitting
Well,
in
and I
between
want-
two
and I-
women that have no problem being in bikinis and being
and I
confident.
want
but-
my kids to be self-confident
I
and not
agree.
hide their self
That
and
is
hide their bodies.
that's my mission
And-
for my daughter
yeah.
is that she
Yeah.
never has the insecurity of being who she is.
Yeah.
And I think that really the call to action, if you were to kind of listening to this or watching this, is that whether we look the way we are or whether we had a different body weight, body habitus, etc., I think the honest truth is that when you feel good in your skin, you feel unstoppable.
Right.
Amen.
And so it's not a matter that you have to be a size 0.
No,
You can be
absolutely
a
not.
size 0. You can be a size 10. You can even be a size 20. If the goal is just trying to get you to your best version of you, right? And
what I
that is
preach.
the constant North Star you're pursuing, then you're winning. And then the
Unstoppable.
reality, you are unstoppable. And I think that that's ultimately what we're talking about today. So I don't want anyone to
Right.
be listening to this or watching this thinking that we're only talking about the people who can fit in a junior section of the store
No,
in a
not
size
at all.
0, or that's not the case.
No.
The reality is that our goal is to reach every person of every race, age, body type, etc., to say, what are your goals in life and how do we help you get to those and really personalize that journey for your best year.
And Lacey's going to be able to do that.
Well, and I work with all of those different type of people, what I like for them to understand too, most of the people that I work with, when they do get to that health, that they're seeking, or that goal weight, or build the muscle, and they do get that self-confidence, it seeps into every other aspect of their
Yes.
life. So all of a sudden they're getting like job promotions, and their sex life is better, their
Right.
like marriage is better, like all of it, and they're a better mom because they're finally taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge difference, and it kind of trickles into everything. So.
Agreed.
I want to leave it on that. I think that was awesome. Lacey, thank you so much for sleeping around with
Thank
Dr. Anna
you for
Matthew.
having me.
And it's so good to finally meet you
I know.
face to face. You are a boss, and I really do appreciate you empowering women. It really does mean a lot. And so, again, thank you again.
Thanks
And
for having me.
you want to give your tagline now?
Yeah, we're just keeping it between sleep friends.
Just keep it between sleep friends. Thank you, guys.